Meat on the menu. Who needs it? By Raymond H. Woolsey. Introduction. Our lives are sustained by food, which contains energy produced by the effects of solar radiation on the leaves of plants. A green substance, chlorophyll found in leaves, utilizes the sun's energy and stores it in the plant, with carbon from the air, combined with water and minerals from the soil. Substances are produced that maintain life and activity for both man and animals. Man can receive his energy supply directly from fruits, vegetables, grains, legumes, nuts, and natural oils, or he can obtain it secondhand from meat or animal products. Because of our relatively inefficient energy transfer mechanisms, a vegetarian utilizes 1/10 of the energy stored in his food, while a meat eater utilizes from meat only 1/100th of the energy that was originally stored in the primary source, the plants. This loss is considerable and causes some concern. It was formerly believed that food and fossil fuels storing energy from the sun were unlimited and could be used without thought or planning. However, with overpopulation, gross mismanagement, and natural catastrophes, our world is facing an imminent energy crisis. Can we continue the great food energy loss by producing meat as a major dietary source for the citizens of the world? Concern over this question has produced a groundswell of interest in plant sources of food as a major approach to solving our ecological crisis. Raymond H. Woolsey has reviewed the advantages and appropriateness of obtaining food from plant sources. Further, he has outlined certain disadvantages that may be found in the eating of meat. I have known the author as a personal friend for 15 years. He has written a number of books, and for 6 years was editor of a health journal. I feel confident the reader will profit from this study of our food sources. Robert H. Dunn, MD MPH, Director of Preventive Medicine, Washington Adventist Hospital. 1. Let reason rule. A testimonial dinner was being planned to honor England's famous playwright George Bernard Shaw. The host felt it expedient to ask Shaw, a vegetarian, whether he would be offended if meat were served to the other guests. "Oh no," Shaw replied. Then his eyes twinkled. "I might not be able to hear what was said about me if everyone were crunching celery sticks. Vegetarians are making more noise, and the meatless diet is making more sense than at any previous time in history. Some of the noise is from nutritionists who are making scientific studies on how much protein the body needs and the best places to get it. Some is coming from researchers such as Ralph Nader's Raiders, who report on studies on additives and contamination in flesh food. Much noise is being generated by those who have their eyes on the exploding population and the ability of this planet to produce enough food for everyone. Then, adding to the cacophony, there are the food faddists emphasizing bizarre regimens. But perhaps you are simply concerned with the high price of meat at the supermarket, and you are looking for economical substitutes to stretch your food budget. Whatever your motive, you have a lot to gain and nothing to lose in examining the meatless diet. But first, let us pause for station identification, or at least for a definition of terms. Vegetarian is a word of many meanings. To use the expression of Humpty Dumpty in Alice's Wonderland, it depends on who is using it. To some people it is almost a religion, and they make the rest of life revolve around it. To many, however, vegetarian simply relates to the vegetable kingdom in general as a source of food, as opposed to the animal kingdom. The word stems from a root meaning life, and was coined in the past century by those who had such a reverence for life that they refused to kill in order to eat. Today there are several kinds of vegetarians. The pure vegetarian, sometimes called a vegan, uses no animal product in his dietary. No milk, no eggs, and some do not even use honey. The lacto-vegetarian does not eat flesh but will add milk and milk products to his fruit, vegetables, grains, and nuts. The lacto-vegetarian will also include eggs. Similarly, the flesh eater may be called carnivore or an omnivore, which implies he will eat anything. Generally, we will use only 3 terms. The vegetarian will be one who includes the use of milk and eggs. The flesh eater we will call a non-vegetarian, and the one who uses no animal products we will call a pure vegetarian. Aside from those incensed at the high cost of meat, the group that is presently giving the most publicity to the vegetarian diet are those who look at the question from a moral standpoint. Many people, including those in the youth culture, are concerned about the morality of taking life. We cannot give life, they say, so why should we take it? Interestingly enough, this moral aspect is probably the oldest motive in the history of vegetarianism. And don't write it all off as a fad. Vegetarianism is as old as man. Milton, Pope, Shelley, Voltaire, Thoreau, Franklin, Tolstoy, Wesley, Gandhi, Newton, Rousseau, Kellogg, St. Francis of Assisi, all extolled vegetarianism. So did the early church fathers, Chrysostom, Clement of Alexandria, Origen, Tertullian, and on back into the pre-Christian era, Buddha, Asoka, Aristotle, Socrates, Plato, Pythagoras, Ovid, Plutarch. They all advocated a fleshless diet to some degree. In the Bible, the record goes back even further, and it is based not altogether on a moral footing. At creation, God established that man should live on fruits, grains, and nuts. Later, vegetables were added to the dietary. See Genesis 1:29, 3:18. Only when the flood destroyed vegetation for a period was man given permission to use flesh. Genesis 9:3. The results of this change of diet were soon evident in man's longevity. Whereas previously man lived for 900 years or more, within 2 or 3 generations after the flow, and he could expect only 100 to 150 years. And this soon dwindled to the proverbial 60 years, and 10. The divine dispensation to eat flesh did not include the use of certain kinds, the scavengers of sea, earth, and sky. See Deuteronomy 14. And when meat was eaten, it must not include blood or fat. Sensible instruction, in the light of today's knowledge of nutrition. The dietary God gave to the Israelites in their wilderness odyssey was vegetarian. When they lusted after flesh, it was provided forthwith, along with a plague. In considering the morality of killing animals, some would point out that God ordered animal sacrifices, and that Jesus ate fish, and gave it to others to eat. Yes, fish meat is also flesh. But what God does is his choice, and what he does in working around man's choice are two different things. The eventual redemption of man from evil was of prime importance. Animal sacrifices taught men the heinousness of sin, that the wages of sin is death. They also pointed forward to Jesus as a sacrifice for all man's sins. And as for Jesus, when he lived on earth, he taught more in principle than in specifics. He did not preach against slavery, for example, but he taught that all men may call God Father. In feeding the 5,000, he used what was at hand, 5 loaves and 2 fishes, just as he begins where we are in recreating the human heart. He taught that God cares for the sparrow. Certainly the principles of Christianity, which teach that God is love, include a reverence for life. As Proverbs tells us, a righteous man regardeth the life of his beast. Chapter 12:10. Another argument in the moralist book is the question of raising animals for the purpose of slaughtering them. If killing is bad, is not breeding and raising for the purpose of killing even worse? As one author has put it, we act as both friend and foe to our flocks and herds, protector and final betrayer, carefully guarding them against all natural enemies in order to slaughter them ourselves. Being non-predators, they trust us, only to be preyed on when we desire to eat their dead flesh. When the high cost of grain feed forced poultry growers to destroy freshly hatched chicks, the destruction process was portrayed on television as a news item. Thousands of telephone calls protested the slaughter. Yet most of those same callers would gladly eat those same chickens were they allowed to grow a bit. Strange how our morals dim where our dinners are concerned. Let us slaughter animals humanely, we cry, while we mean to add, let us nonetheless slaughter them. And what is happening to our sensibilities while all this slaughter is going on? Can we eat a slaughtered animal without sharing in the slaughter itself? And can we kill creature after creature without our sense of values being affected? Psychiatrists tell us that watching many murders on television has a Pavlovian conditioning effect on us. Are animals so far removed that killing them does not have a similar effect? In fact, some people would go so far as to suggest there is no difference between eating the flesh of a cow and eating the flesh of a human being, except in the degree of morality. Another writer emphasizes still another aspect. The use of flesh meat has a tendency to animalize the nature, and to rob men and women of the love and sympathy which they should feel for everyone. We are built up from that which we eat, and those whose diet is largely composed of animal food are brought into a condition where they allow the lower passions to assume control of the high powers of the being. So much for the ethics of the matter. Perhaps these arguments have not turned you on, for not everyone views life through the same color of glasses. There are yet other reasons that merit your attention. When you add them all together, they can hardly be ignored, especially as your health and even perhaps your life itself are at stake.